Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman self, the part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts, no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Hello, Women Making Marriages Work. Hello, Making Relationships Work podcast and Making Relationships Work YouTube channel. Surprise! I'm here. And it's not my normal time. How wonderful is this? My friends, I've missed you. I've been away, traveling, up-leveling, being in an immersive 3-day, 24-hour-a-day program. And I've come out the other side and I'm so energized, and I couldn't wait for our normal time to talk, which is usually tomorrow night. I wanted to talk to you right now. And I wanted to talk to you right now. I'm called to talk to you right now about the suffering in your marriage. And I just saw that one of my beautiful graduates, Lisa, has joined us. Hey, beautiful Lisa. So today I wanted to talk to you about suffering and what is suffering, where does it come from, and what do you do to break the cycle? Because the thing about suffering in a marriage is that it is this relentless cycle. And suffering is so erosive to your sense of us against the world, your sense of we versus me. Hello, Mari. Hello, beautiful Lisa. Suffering is just terrible for a marriage. So when one person is in suffering in a marriage, two people will be in suffering in the marriage, and the entity of marriage will be drained. It will be drained of goodwill. It will be drained of positivity. It will be drained of connection. It will be drained of a sense of us against the world. Suffering is agony, of course, and it does terrible things to the individual experiencing it, and terrible things to the marriage itself, and terrible things to the community who exists around the marriage, like your children or extended family. So let's define suffering. Suffering is a state of pain where needs aren't being met, where courageous leadership is in staying alive in the marriage. And I don't mean that in a death way, but I mean that in a showing up to the marriage. So all of your energy, all of your courage is showing up in that space. And that's barely survival. You hear? It's barely survival. It's certainly nowhere near thriving. It's the antithesis of thriving. And so what you've got is suffering that hurts. And that pain that you're experiencing day in, day out, well, it does things to you. Jessie, hello. It does things to your marriage. The suffering in your body changes your physiology in ways that have you feeling lower in terms of frequency, but lower in terms of energy levels, lower in terms of self-worth, self-esteem, self-pleasure in being alive and being the beautiful individual that you are. And suffering comes from continually going to somebody to have your needs met and having that sense of not being chosen, not being picked, not being well loved, not being noticed, not being appreciated, not belonging. You see? Suffering is the sense of being outcast or being not held in high regard or not experiencing a sense of deep purpose and connection within your marriage. And quite simply, suffering is excruciating, particularly if it's long term. So that's what suffering is. Let's talk about what happens in suffering. Nikki, hello. Let me get back on track. Let's talk about what happens in suffering if you stay in a marriage and you stay in that cycle, many women that I talk to, and we talk to hundreds of women every week, okay? So many of the women I know through those conversations stay in that marriage because of the children, because of hope, because of love, because of the vows, because of their commitment, because of the financial repercussions of divorce, because. But whatever they're throwing at it to turn it around is usually not working. Otherwise, they wouldn't be calling me. Yeah. So, what women tend to do when they're in suffering is use their defenders. And their defenders are rage or silent treatment. Their defenders are denying that anything's really going on. It's not that bad. It's worse for my friend. Her husband actually cheated on her, or her husband, dot, dot, dot. And so we minimize, we do all kinds of things. And particularly our brain doesn't want to see that there's really a problem, because our brain wants us to be safe. Our brain wants our marriage to be okay. Our brain wants things to go back to the way they were. And so we throw all kinds of defenses at it. And what that means is we throw all kinds of defenses at our husbands. And so if you're in suffering for a long period of time, you'll be showing up to your husband in a way that is doing more damage and more damage and more damage, and driving you further and further and further apart, because the suffering that you're experiencing, it grows. You're feeding it by trying to defend yourself. And that might sound like a criticism, but I hope that you can feel that it's not. It's a description of what tends to happen to most women. And so these beautiful women who have tried everything, they've tried everything to interrupt the cycle, find that they have these little windows or pockets with their husband that feel like they're back together. And for a little period of time, things get better. But then the crash is inevitably worse afterwards, because she had this experience of hope. She reconnected with him. It felt better. And then the same old patterns surfaced again. And the next time they surface, there's a little less openness to having it feel better, because last time they let it feel better, it got worse again. And so we start to run out of steam to keep trying. And this is where we start to find women increasing the way they're showing up in their marriage, and their husbands are also mirroring this experience for them. So these two beautiful people are now both in suffering, and they're both defending their positions. So they're both blaming each other, criticizing each other, using contempt with each other. And that's that eye roll sneer. And contempt is considered corrosive acid for a relationship. And they're showing up denying that they're the one with the problem, justifying why they're right, and defending their position. And of course, with all of that defensiveness and all of that micro and macro aggression and all of that pain and suffering that sits behind those defenses, you start to get very low amounts of goodwill left in the marriage. This is when you'll start to become like roommates, coordinating schedules. Who's doing pickup? Who's doing drop off? How's this going to work? And that, in and of itself, is like a roommate perspective that is terrible for a marriage, because there's no care, there's no connection, there's no deep appreciation, there's no stolen moments in the kitchen with a hug and a squeeze and maybe a little indicator of something pleasurable coming that night. Those feelings of being us against the world are long gone. And so what we have is this aching void, this terrible addition to the suffering we already had. And you know what most people do in the face of this level of discomfort and pain. They start to say, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this marriage? And then they start to say, Well, if my, and they start to create other people to take their husband or their wife's place in their mind. And so they'll go back to, the one that got away, or a flirty coworker, or they'll go and make a fantasy up about somebody else, and they'll put a name to that. So we'll call it Luke for you. So all of a sudden, the wife starts thinking, well, Luke wouldn't treat me like that. Luke would see me for the big heart that I have. Luke would see the leadership I have around the home. Luke would see what I put into this marriage and this family and keeping this home the way that I do. He would appreciate me. He would know me. He would love me. And wives, your husbands do the same thing. They start to think, there's got to be a different way. I'm not that bad. And it's the same as what women do. And so they start to imagine where they could go to be accepted for who they are, just the way wives start to think about where they could go to be accepted for who they are. So we have this very separate discourse in the marriage. And when we get to that, you are really starting to find yourself in a space where the only way to make the suffering stop is divorce or separation. And here's the thing, when people get to that narrowness, when they get to that space where divorce is the only way in their mind, one of you will decide to progress with that. Here's the thing about that, 90% of the time, it's the wrong call. Hi, Christy. It's the wrong call because it's not the divorce that's going to save you. It's the repair as to how you got here that's going to save you. If you separate at this point, the two of you will go ahead and make a marriage again, and it will create exactly the same way this one did. You will not have learnt what your partner is here to teach you. The two of you are in charge of teaching each other the life lessons that adults need. That's your sacred contract. And using divorce as an escape mechanism to avoid doing the work that you're here for is really not the answer. Now, sometimes it is the answer, that 10%. So pop that 10% over here. Let's focus on the 90%. When you're suffering, do you know what that actually means? It means your beautiful, beautiful attention-provoking self is trying to tell you something. You're trying to learn something. Yes? You're trying to learn something about yourself. You're trying to learn something about your husband. You're trying to learn something about the co-created marriage you're in. That is why we have pain to learn from. And without pain, without suffering, we don't learn. We kind of coast along in this bubble of a life that doesn't feel very stretchy and exciting. Yeah? Pain is not something to be avoided. It is something to be used as this wonderful teacher to give you this exposure to life and community and growth and connection and matriarchy, where you get to build the muscle you've been looking for. So every time you feel pain, I want you to think about, what am I trying to learn here? Yeah? Now, here's the real kicker about suffering in your marriage. I'm changing tacks slightly. Here's the real kicker. You will suffer in your marriage if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. You hear this? Because here's the thing. When you are in your matriarchal wise woman space, your power comes from allowing life to happen and for you to be observing and engaging where you intentionally put your energy. Observing with logic, observing with formulation. What's really going on here? What's going on for me? What's going on for my husband? What's going on for my marriage? This true wise woman power is in restraint. It is in, how would I like to respond? What is my position on this? How do I feel about this? And it is okay to have a space with that. Because here's the thing. If you're in a space where the words you use to control others are also controlling you, it means that everyone can control you while you're trying to control them. You see? This is not a masterful space to be living in, where you're looking to manipulate, where you're looking to negotiate, where you're looking to slip things in the way that you want. That, my friends, is going to lead to even more suffering. Your greatest opportunity is to take that space where you're sitting back and looking and formulating, where you're looking at things with logic and you're looking at your life and making connections that allow you to understand yourself, your husband, your marriage better. Your job is to breathe, let things pass. You can circle back to them later. So the suffering has to stop, my friends. The ability for you to not be controlled by other people's words has to start. Those two things go hand in hand, because suffering is the very reason why your marriage is in the pain that it's in. You have to stop it. And if you're listening to this and you think, yes, I get that. Yes, I can feel that. Yes, it's in the space that I need it to be. I can feel it. Yeah. And then you get off this video, this live that I'm doing, or you stop listening to the podcast. And then you go back and do it the way you've always done it. You need to book a call with me. I have to teach you how to do this differently, because you have to have a different life. Because your marriage doesn't have to end, because you get to have a good life, because you need this growth and this leadership. This pain that you have is calling you to grow. Yes? So there's two things you can do. The first thing is you can watch my masterclass. I'll ask Leilani to post that in the comments. The second thing is you can book a call with me and my team, and we'll get you super clear. It's a free call, 45 minutes. We call it a breakthrough call because no woman leaves without a breakthrough. We'll get you super clear on what's working and what's not working. And we'll also give you the antidote for your specific marriage, where your specific life is. Yeah? And so when you know where your life is and you want to do something different with it, the first thing you need is a map of what's not working. Then you need the map of how it looks in a masterful way. And then you need the bridge across. Okay? So that is the work that I do. That is my life's work, my life's calling. I want you to have access to that. So I want you to watch the masterclass, and I want you to book a call with us if you're ready to stop the suffering, if you're ready to start having different reactions to the marriage you're in, where you start to take that space and sitting back and observing, formulating, using science and your mind that is now more masterful with being able to map what's going on so that you don't control other people because you don't need to anymore, and you don't allow them to control you because you can see what it is and you're able to advocate in a kind, respectful, calm, connected way so you get a different outcome. Because suffering in this one precious, beautiful life we've got is just not required. You don't need to live in that space. All you need is to know how to do it differently. And that's what I want for you. So, my loves, it's time for me to go. I have loved this impromptu live. I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. I'm looking forward to hearing that you're on a call with me and my team. And I'm looking forward to getting you really clear on how you can make this different. You deserve everything wonderful. You are magnificent. You can be the change you want to see. You can have the life and marriage you've dreamt of. It doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to be in suffering. It can have this wonderful energy that lives in your marriage that the two of you co-create, where you can work through anything, where you get to have the life you've always dreamt of, where it's us against the world, not two me's fighting each other and defending each other. You get to have it all. It's right here for you. I want to teach you how to do it. Jump on a call. Let's get you really clear, and I'll see you very soon. I love each one of you, and I really, really want you to have a wonderful life, a different life, a life where suffering is coded as something different in your brain, and you know exactly what to do to find the breakthrough that you and your brain are looking for. Much love, my sweethearts. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you're feeling fired up and you're ready to grow and you want to know more about how to do that, here is what I want you to do now. I want you to watch my marriage masterclass. This masterclass will show you how my clients have turned their struggling marriages into thriving marriages, even without their husband's buy-in. How my clients have gone from cycles of poor communication, disconnect and loneliness to being teammates and soulmates with their husbands again, even after they've already tried everything. And the proven system my clients use to start transforming their marriages in minutes, not years, because life is too precious to waste one more minute in an unhappy and unfulfilling marriage. So if this is what you're looking for, I want you to click the link